awake this morning, so excited. Wow, the crowd is going nuts.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Happy Thursday. Happy fourth quarter day. We've entered the final quarter. So again, Campaign Communications Director Michael Tyler, joined by Alex Hornbrook, ED of the convention, convention co-chair and Senator Cory Booker. We are going to waste no time so folks can get on with their day. I'm going to turn it over to Alex to run through what to expect tonight.
Thank you. Good morning, welcome. Thank you for joining us for the fourth and final day of the 2024 Democratic National Convention. Over the course of the week, you've heard the story of who we are as Democrats, what we stand for as a party, and the vision that the Harris-Walz ticket is fighting to make a reality. The story was narrated by the voices that tell it best, voices from across the country that represent our broad and deep coalition and underscore the Harris-Walz ticket is fighting for the people, for our freedoms, and for our future. The theme for tonight is For Our Future. And as we conclude our incredible week of organizing, celebrating, and doing the vital work of our party, we'll use the final night in the United Center to show the American people how Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are committed to fighting for a brighter future for everyone. Tonight, we're going to hear from Vice President Harris as she tells her story directly to the country, and we'll hear from leaders across the party, including the Honorable Deb Haaland and Marcia Fudge, Senators Padilla, Casey, Brown, Baldwin, not Brown, Warren, and Kelly, Governor Healy, Gretchen Whitmer, and Roy Cooper, and Representatives Clark Kinzinger, McBath, Neguse, Frost, Slotkin, Allred, and Gallego, the Tennessee Three, Gabby Giffords, gun violence survivors, and gun safety advocates. The final night here of our convention is going to showcase our vision for the future and make clear that Americans are ready to fight and win with the Harris-Walz ticket. With that, I'll turn it back to Michael.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. So again, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the final day of the convention. We are, of course, first and foremost, very excited to hear from Vice President and Democratic nominee for President, Kamala Harris, this evening. She's going to talk about her positive vision for the future of America, an America where the middle class won't just get by, but will get ahead. A country where all of our freedoms are protected, a country where we protect the rights of women, including the right to make their own choices about their bodies. The American people have watched 3 nights of our convention. So let's do a little side-by-side of our high-energy, future-facing convention and the other guys' convention last month in Milwaukee. The city Donald Trump says is horrible. Just to recap from last night really quickly, the message that was on full display. You saw common sense over nonsense, as Oprah so eloquently put it. You saw Republican former Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan say that if you vote for Kamala Harris in 2024, you're not a Democrat, you're a patriot. You saw a future-focused vision for America that consists of more freedoms. You saw joy, love, and happiness in that convention hall. But let's recap the entire week. On Monday, we honored President Biden. We heard about the accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration, the work that they did to rescue our economy after Trump wrecked it, beating Big Pharma, capping the price of insulin at $35 a month for our seniors, securing trillions of dollars for infrastructure to rebuild roads and bridges, making the largest investment in fighting climate change in American history, making our country safer, bringing crime to a 50-year low, passing the first bipartisan gun safety legislation in 3 decades. On Monday at the RNC, you heard from a puppy killer and Trump's top MAGA minion in Congress. On Tuesday, back here in Chicago, you saw Barack and Michelle Obama, second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, talk about how deeply Kamala Harris believes in family and fighting for working people and how she'll bring those values to the White House. Meanwhile, on the second day of the Republican convention, to no one's surprise, they passed an extreme party platform that would ban abortion nationwide and put women's lives at risk. And then last night, the future vice president and America's football coach, Tim Walz, laid out how he has fought for rural communities and Minnesotans to help the middle class get ahead in life. Wednesday at the RNC, it was the architect of family separation taking the stage in prime time. Meanwhile, at our convention, you've heard from reproductive rights champions like Amanda Zarowski, Caitlin Joshua, Hadley Duvall. You've heard from defenders of democracy like Sergeant Gonell, who defended the Capitol on January 6th. You'll hear from more American heroes tonight, as Alex was discussing. The split screen between our stages and the voices that we are uplifting could not be more clear. When Donald Trump finally took the stage on the final night of the RNC, we were told it would be a seminal moment in this election. The moment when he found a new tone, finally turned his focus from himself to the American people. We were told Trump would finally act like a president, Well, we're still waiting for that Donald Trump to show up, but if you are looking for a president, you'll see her on stage tonight. I'll let Senator Booker say more about Vice President Harris, but before I do that, I do want to talk about one more thing you're going to hear tonight. The Vice President is going to share her story with the American people, from being raised by a working mother in a middle-class neighborhood to fighting for survivors of sexual assault and homeowners who suffered in the foreclosure crisis. She'll share her optimistic vision for America's future, a new way forward, while Trump's Project 2025 agenda would drag us back into the past. On that stage tonight, you'll see a champion for working people all across the country, a defender of our fundamental freedoms, and a prosecutor who will make the case against Donald Trump. Most importantly, what you'll see is the next president of the United States. From the other speakers today, you're going to hear about how Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and so many others in our party have fought for our freedoms, our safety, our security, the rule of law. As Governor Walz pointed out yesterday in his remarks, we're entering the fourth quarter in a close game. We feel good about where we are. As the underdog, you do not play prevent defense. You play to win. That's exactly what this campaign is going to do coming out of Chicago for the rest of this campaign. This convention has been a huge success so far, but we know there's still a lot of work to do. We're going to continue to drive the enthusiasm that this convention is generating into action on the ground in the battleground states, continue to take our message directly to the voters that are going to decide this election every day between now and Election Day. With that, it is my pleasure to turn it over to Convention Co-Chair, U.S. Senator Cory Booker.
The smattering of applause is very much appreciated. All right, you all know this. I am an OG Joy guy. It's something I've been talking about for a very long time. And this convention has been the greatest gift that I could ever have, to be able to witness what we have been witnessing, especially relative and in comparison to what we saw in the Republican convention. I am so happy now. It's almost like weeping has endured through the night, but joy cometh in the morning. And in many ways, we see a new day dawning in America, a page being turned, and that is being represented by the kind of speakers you see before you in this convention. You've seen some of the best talent America has to offer, not in a partisan way, but people coming forward and giving their testimony to hope, to joy, to love, and to a vision of America that is so inclusive, that is so about bringing us together to heal. Now, tonight, I tell you, I'm excited, but another moment about last night. I had this incredible privilege, thanks to the men on either side of me, to, for the first time in a convention, I've spoken at past ones, but to actually be backstage during the whole time. And I know Michael Tyler just used a bunch of football analogies. He's a great guy. I think he's got a fantasy football team. I actually played the sport, man. and a long-time old friend, I'm just joking, but I was a ball player, played high school football. We won the state championship. I went to Stanford, played there, and I know about good coaches. I know about bad coaches. I know about the beauty of having great teams. Some of my best friends in life are people all across the political spectrum, but we are still a team. We bowled at the White House recently, my team, about a year ago, and there were Republicans, Democrats, but we were all together. There's a tight bond. You can't fake that. And so what America didn't see last night was when Walz came off the stage and went backstage, and I saw all of these men get together with such joy and exuberance in a love huddle like I have not seen since the days I was playing football. Walz is a special kind of guy. And what you saw last night and what you felt last night is real. And so many Americans are looking for that. We've witnessed too much of the politics of demeaning and degrading. And in Donald Trump, I will tell you, he is a guy that so indiscriminately degrades Americans that even Republicans are not safe. He's been degrading DeSantis about his height, my friend, Chris Christie, about his weight, Nikki Haley about her heritage, John McCain about his military service. And so to see in Walz and so many of the other folks that are supporting this incredible ticket, this idea that we're not about putting people down, we're about lifting people up. And so tonight we're going to hear from Kamala Harris. And I am so excited It's like a proud sibling. She and I served together in the Senate. I know who she is, I know what she's about, and I can't wait until America hears from her. And so let me tell you, I work in the Senate. Policy is important, legislation is important. And I know she's going to talk a lot about that. I've had the privilege, again, these rare privileges you get in life, to work side by side with people, with a person, on the hardest, toughest issues in America. From healthcare to environmental justice to economic justice, she and I partnered on some of the toughest issues. And the privilege I got was to see somebody who worked with me on the legislation as a senator and then got to watch her as a part of a leadership team actually get that legislation into law on so many issues that she and I worked at. And it's not necessarily the kind of issues that always the press wants to report on, but the economic instability of farmers. She and I were talking about everything from the overt history of injustice towards black farmers, but also just struggling farmers. We literally, thanks to Biden-Harris, just got billions of dollars out the door to help economically disadvantaged farmers. Environmental injustice, she and I went to work on those issues in the Senate. And then when she became vice president, she became, in the White House, the environmental justice champion. And she showed up in Newark, because two of us were so happy about it, to announce that every lead service pipe in our city was out of the ground. On issue after issue, maternal mortality rates in America are horrific. We have one of the worst nations on maternal mortality. She and I went to work on those issues in the Senate, and thanks to Joe Biden, we now have an expansion of Medicaid coverage, more people with health insurance than ever before. And so the policy matters. Everybody should understand that the vision she has for this country in terms of the actual things that she wants to do are important. I hope we talk about that. But I want to end by saying to you that something that to me that is as important, if not in many ways fuels the policy. The leaders that she and I revere from the civil rights movement knew that yes, we're working towards voting rights or civil rights, but there's something about the spirit of the country that has to heal first. To make the legislation possible, you've really got to tap in to the heart, to the soul, to the spirit of the country. And she knows how you win. Not Donald Trump's way. She knows that when Martin Luther King went down to Selma, he didn't beat Bull Connor in Birmingham because he brought bigger dogs or bigger fire hoses, because he hated more. No, they won in Birmingham because they inspired the moral imagination of a nation. They called to the conscience of our country. And so I love what Maya Angelou says. And when you're listening to, I think, one of the greatest speeches we're going to hear in this election season tonight, I want you all to remember what Maya Angelou says, that people often forget what you say, but they're never going to forget how you make them feel. I know how Walt made me feel last night. And what I'm excited about today is to see my colleague, my friend, my sister in the Senate share her heart with America, to appeal to the better angels of our nation, to have a tradition in our presidency that Donald Trump betrayed. He never said malice towards none and charity towards all. There is a tradition in our great presidents that tell us we're not going to be about fear and smear. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. Those presidents that appeal to the best of who we are in the worst of our times to help us to get to higher ground. That's the feeling that America will get tonight. Weeping has endured, but joy is coming. That is what has me so excited, hoarse from yelling. I am tired, but I am telling you tonight, I will be on my feet with millions of other Americans saying, yes, yes, a new day is coming.
Thank you, Senator. I don't think I have anything left to say at this point. But no, with that, we will take a few questions.
Hi, Skylar Bloomberg here. So just to start, first thing, so back, I guess, when Biden was running, there was a lot of conversation among black male voters that the Republicans were trying to pull who were a bit undecided.
Did you say black men?
Black men, yes.
Black
So
men.
Black men?
black men that the Republicans were trying to court away from the Democratic Party. Now with Harris as the nominee, what is, are there any concerns that some of the Republicans could make gains there? Just kind of what is maybe the current, hate to use the word vibe, but what's the current, what are you guys seeing there? And do you think Trump can pull some of those black voters still, or?
You want to start?
Yeah, I'll start, absolutely. It might not surprise you, I spend a lot of time with black men. And I've had a lot of tough conversations. I was called out by a young influencer yesterday. I had this great head of hair, and when I talked about, I spend time having conversations in barbershops, and he just totally went at me for that. But I do visit from time to time. This is a every other day thing. I still have to shave my head, and I have heard a lot of discontent over the years, and we tell the truth to each other when we talk. But what you're seeing in the polls is what I'm experiencing in communities, which is, yeah, there were a lot of folks that were making a point that you were seeing 20+% of black men seeming like they might vote for the Republicans. But that has shifted. All the polls I've seen, it's shifted, and I'm feeling it in our communities. And one of the greatest experiences I've had as a guy who spends a lot of time on social media is the second Kamala Harris sort of announced her presidency and the president appointed, directed his endorsement towards her, and that we all rallied around her, I started seeing organically, and I hope that if you spend some time on social media, you see what I'm seeing, which is a lot of black men come forward and have this conversation digitally. And a lot of it is actually clapping back on some of the things that during her presidential campaign were just unfair, really lies about her time as a DA, about her time as the Attorney General, when she, now coming to light, had probably one of the more visionary understandings of how a criminal justice system should hold people accountable, but also should empower people to succeed. And so a lot of that truth is getting out here, and I'm seeing it melt away the kind of falsities that I think have fueled a lot of the discontent you see in a lot of folks. And then the final thing I want to say is, and this is great about the Harris campaign and great about, I think, the way they're running it, is they're not taking any voter for granted. This is a campaign that knows they have to earn the vote, that they have to work for it, that they have to speak to all of the diversity of America and call us together. And what excites me is that when it comes to African American success under Biden-Harris, a lot of folks just don't know the story. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten on Zooms with black folk or had direct conversations that when I start bringing my receipts, most black business starts, most black people covered by health insurance, lowest black unemployment rate, black farmers, black environmental justice issues, most black people being connected to the internet and because of the infrastructure work that's done. When you start going through the receipts, I think people begin to understand what has been achieved. And then when you get someone who has lived experience that's very relatable to most Americans, women, immigrants, people who were not born with generational wealth, I think that people begin to understand that they're going to have somebody in the White House that sees them, that will fight for them, and that will continue to advance the ball. So I am looking forward to this competition for voters of all backgrounds, and I'm looking forward to working with the Harris-Walz team to earn the votes of every American. And trust me, we will be in Milwaukee. Trust me, we will be in Detroit. Trust me, I just came out of Philly last week where I was in a black barbershop and a beauty salon having these kind of conversations.
Yeah, and the only thing, before we move on, the only thing I would add is that we have 74 days left until the election now. As this election creeps up on the American people, as it creeps up on more black men, I think the choice is becoming more stark and more clear. In Donald Trump, what black men are seeing is somebody who stepped into public life, falsely accusing the Central Park Five, never apologizing for it after he already knew them to be the exonerated five. This is a person who stepped into political life by taking birtherism and having it go mainstream. This is somebody who, when he was president, it's not just the record of racist invective, it is the disastrous economic record by the end of his presidency. The things that had gone up for black folks in America were the unemployment rate and the uninsured rate after he fumbled the bag on the COVID response. And this is somebody who every single day out on the stump right now is leading not with policy solutions to improve the lives of black men in this country, but is leading with more invective, was leading with more hate, more chaos, more division. And so we know this is not, for many black men, this is not going to be a choice between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. It's going to be a choice between the couch and actually voting for this ticket. And so we are focused on making sure that black men across this country understand the vision that Kamala Harris has for them as we move forward over the course of the next 4 years. That's why she's out on the stump in places like North Carolina, laying out the first pillars of her economic agenda, how we're going to continue to lower costs, how we're going to continue to build economic opportunity, how we're going to create an economy where black young entrepreneurs can actually not just get by, but get ahead. And so that's going to be the fundamental contrast that we present over the course of the next 2 months here. And as the senator was saying, we're going to use every single tool at our disposal to do so, organizing heavily on the ground in cities like Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, Milwaukee. We're going to make sure that we're also investing in paid media, making sure that particularly for young black men, we're reaching them where they are, right? So not just running television ads, it's why we're over-indexing on things like digital advertisements, because we have to hit people not just with the right message and the right messengers, but you have to hit them on the platform so they're actually getting our campaign's message. So we're going to sprint through the tape and take absolutely nothing for granted.
Take that mic out and just drop it.
Thank you for doing this. Michael Jones, Once Upon a Hill. I know you've been had your fair share of campaigns, MT. I'm just curious, can you put into context the campaign that the vice president and the government, have executed so far under, extraordinary circumstances, especially consolidating that support among congressional Democrats so quickly? What does it say about the candidates? What does it say about the campaign that the president passed along to the vice president? Can you just put into context what got vice president to this moment tonight?
Yeah, listen, I think, you referenced the president sort of immediately endorsing the vice president when he stepped aside and she stepped into his shoes as the leader of this party and our nominee. I think he said himself, right, the first decision, the most important decision, the best decision he made when he became our party's nominee was selecting Kamala Harris as his running mate, because he knew that she was prepared to step into the role at any given moment if you ever needed to step aside, that she was the one who was capable, uniquely capable of uniting this party and uniting this country and leading this country as we move forward. And I think you've seen the Democratic Party respond to that writ large. I think you've seen the American people respond to that writ large. And that's why this week in Chicago, you've seen Democrats united in their gratitude for President Biden, but united in their enthusiasm and support for Vice President Harris, and united in their understanding of the work that we need to do to get across the finish line in November. And so we're excited about the energy, the enthusiasm over the course of the first month of this campaign. But what our focus is as we leave Chicago and head into the general election here for the final few months is, again, making sure that we are converting all of this energy, all of this enthusiasm into action on the ground, right? We have 300 field offices, 1,600 staff across all of our battleground states. We are using opportunities like this. Last night, for example, we had our biggest phone bank of this entire campaign so far, dialing in to voters in the battleground states, making sure that they were tuning in and watching, making sure that they understood the fundamental stakes of this election. And that organizing work continues from now until November, because again, we feel really good about where we are, but this is going to be a margin of error race decided by a handful of votes, right, in a handful of states. And so we cannot take anything for granted. We have to use every single tool at our disposal to get to 270 electoral votes. So that's what our focus is.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Jackie Capel with News Nation. This is sort of a two-parter. In terms of the momentum, obviously there is quite a lot coming in and throughout the convention. What's the plan to keep that momentum going? And since we've covered him quite a bit, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, what's the strategy to court RFK's voters, particularly if he endorses Trump tomorrow?
Yeah, listen, I'll start in order. I think on sort of maintaining the enthusiasm, I spoke a little bit about that just now, but for us, we have from now, we leave Chicago. I think what you'll see is the Vice President, Governor Walz, get back out on the stump, directly engage the voters in the battleground states, as we have done since the Vice President selected the governor as a running mate. They've gone to virtually every single battleground state, holding those rallies that you've seen, right? You saw 10,000 people in Atlanta. You saw 20,000 in places like Phoenix and Las Vegas. I think what we are excited about is, as we continue that, is not simply the crowd size, right? I know our opponent is focused on crowd size, but what we are focused on is actually converting those numbers into volunteer engagements. Atlanta, for example, which was probably the first large-scale event that we had, you had 10,000 people show up. We ended up with 1,500 of those 10,000 signing up to volunteer on this campaign. Those are the ones who are, from now, going to be knocking on doors, making phone calls, talking to folks in their communities about the stakes of this election. That's the work that continues as we leave Chicago and we hit the stump. Obviously, we look forward to other high-profile moments as we approach the early voting period. I think that begins with the ABC debate on September 10th, should Donald Trump actually keep his word and show up. We'll continue with the vice presidential debate in October on CBS, and then we turn into mobilization mode, right, as we fully convert all of this energy, all of this enthusiasm into get out the vote efforts into the months of October. Early voting starts in many states in late September, so we have a short amount of time right now to harness all of this energy again into action at the ballot box. Oh, RFK. Yeah, listen, I mean, two things. Number one, RFK was obviously funded in large part by MAGA donors. He parroted a lot of MAGA talking points throughout the campaign, so I don't think it would come as any surprise to us should he formally endorse Donald Trump today. But my message is not for him. My message is for many of the undecided voters, many of whom found a home with him at the early stages of this campaign. If they were feeling disaffected about the state of the race, if they were looking for a new way forward, if they were looking for somebody who's actually going to fight for their interests, their values, if they were looking for somebody who understood as it relates to the personal decisions that they make in their lives, the government should get the hell out of the way, then there's a home for them in Kamala Harris's campaign. And we'll do all the work necessary to court those voters and make sure that they understand the fundamental stakes and the threat posed by Donald Trump and the path forward, the positive vision that Kamala Harris is campaigning on for the rest of this campaign.
Hello, thank you. Ted Johnson from Deadline. Two questions. One, last night we had the appearance of Oprah Winfrey, but there's also been a number of other musical celebrities and performances, and I was wondering if you could speak to why is that important to feature those figures. The other question is, the three nights have gone beyond prime time on the East Coast. The question is, does it matter to you?
Alex, you want to take this and I'm happy to follow up?
Yes, on your first question, I think we have seen every single night a real wide variety of speakers and presenters that represent, again, the very broad and diverse coalition that is coalescing around our candidates. We obviously are living in a time of very fractured media environment. We have, people, particularly people who are not, super engaged in politics day to day, who get their news, their information from a whole wide variety of sources. And so having some of the folks that you mentioned from the entertainment industry and others, we have a lot of people who want to come and support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and those are, folks who help us to reach segments of Americans who may not be, watching TV news or other sources. So we really appreciate everyone from your average citizens, your elected officials, folks in the entertainment and other industries who are coming here, lending their voices, lending their credibility to, support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And the second one was, sorry, what? Well, we're a party who has a lot to say, and with a lot of people who, again, are really excited to be here and to support and to talk about why they're supporting Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and all of the accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration. And so, that exuberance has led us, a little bit over time a few nights, but we've been, making the requisite adjustments and making sure that we get to, the folks that, the voters and the delegates really, want to see and hear from.
Final point on that, too, before you get started, I'm sorry. But, I think the ratings have spoken for themselves, too, relative to the Republican National Convention last month. I think we've outpaced them every night so far this convention, so folks absolutely are tuning in. And as Alex was saying, we're also understanding the nature of the American electorate in 2024, right? This is not simply a made-for-TV event as we move forward. It is increasingly making sure that we're reaching voters across all platforms. That's why, for the first time, we're proud of the fact that, in addition to all of the credentialed legacy media that we have here in the room and at the convention hall tonight, we've got over 200 content creators who are credentialed for this for this convention as well. We're able to roam the halls, we're able to go around the convention, share their stories, share some of this entertainment and content that they see as well, and share it with their viewers on their platform. So we have to make sure that we are continuing to engage all of our target voters in the ways that they're actually consuming their media. And so for many of them, that is still sitting in front of a television screen at home on their couch. But increasingly, for the voters who we need to reach to actually win this election, it's on the phone, it's on the tablet, it's everywhere else that they're moving across this country. And so we're running a convention and a campaign that's actually tailored to meet the voters that we need to get to 270 electoral votes.
Thank you. Fritz, ABC. There's been a lot of talk about unity this week, so why won't y'all allow a Palestinian speaker to address the convention? And by simply saying that Trump would be worse for Arab Americans, is that not the campaign taking their votes for granted?
No, we're absolutely not taking their votes for granted. I think as it relates to uncommitted delegates at this convention, we're proud and glad that they are here. We've worked to engage them throughout the convention. We're proud of the fact that we held panel conversations with members of the uncommitted movement. We're proud that the Vice President herself engaged with leadership in the uncommitted movement in Michigan a couple of weeks ago. That's why the campaign has continued to engage with leadership of the uncommitted movement throughout this convention. And I think what they will see, what folks who continue to demonstrate and protest will see, is a vice president. What has already been clear and what they'll continue to see for the rest of this campaign is a vice president who is committed to ending the violence, ending the conflict, making sure that we resolve this conflict with a permanent ceasefire that allows Israel to fully secure itself, that fully continues and make sure that we have full humanitarian aid, but also make sure that Gazans are able to peacefully live and prosper in Gaza. That's what she's going to relentlessly fight for as President of the United States, and it does stand in stark contrast to our opponent, whose only North Star is what benefits him, does not care about national security, does not care about global security, is only interested in his own personal self-interest. And so when you're looking for somebody who's going to serve as commander-in-chief, when you're looking at temperament, judgment, ability to handle complex global situations, there's only one candidate in this race who fits the bill, and that's the vice president. All right. With that, I think we will wrap. But thank you all. All right.